Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Renton Reflects. When I first saw the trailer for this film, it looked to me like the movie was pretty average and nothing too special. Later on, I decided to check it out to see if I was right on the dot or if I was completely way off. The story takes place in a world where, apparently, only anthropomorphic animals exist. It's not quite like Disney's Zootopia, but rather, it's much more primitive than that. We don't see any human characters throughout the film, though we do see a human skeleton at one point, which may seem a little bit confusing in how the world is set up. And somehow, these animal characters know how to use bits of human technology despite their primitive nature. Like old-fashioned picture cameras, for one. I'm not exactly sure how that kind of setup works, but that's not the focus here. The focus is on two clans, one involving wolves and the other sheep. One of the wolves, named Gray, is having a relationship problem with one of the female wolves named Bianca. Gray feels that he must try to change, in a figurative sense. One night, he comes across a gypsy rabbit who is able to help him try to change, though in a literal sense, because she gives him a potion that ends up magically transforming him into a ram. Once he discovers this, he must try to track down the gypsy rabbit for help, while also having to deal with complete misunderstandings between both the wolves and the sheep, and also try to set things right between the two clans. If this sounds like a premise that's very basic to you, you would be right, because it pretty much is. Though, that's the least of this movie's problems. Besides having a somewhat predictable plot and a setup that leaves a few more questions than it does answers, the movie doesn't really do anything too radical or too outrageous with its premise. Much of the time, it's played out as straightforward, with its run-of-the-mill humor and its mixture of ideas that don't exactly gel. Not to mention that it doesn't really give the characters much dimension in order for them to be both identifiable and relatable. Even its jokes are either not funny, confusing, or both. For example, there's a point in the story that incorporates the song Never Gonna Give You Up by Rick Astley. You know, the song that became such a viral hit on the internet, it became part of what's known as Rickrolling. When that song started playing, I thought, why? How does that song fit into this movie's universe? Just because a song is quite popular doesn't mean that the filmmakers had to use it. It's my belief that the fact this movie had 8 writers involved with the screenplay really says something about how this movie lacks a clear focus and direction. Interestingly enough, with The Wizard of Oz, starring Judy Garland, that movie had 14 writers involved, even though only 3 of them got credit for it. At least that movie had a much better script than this one, but I digress. This isn't to say that everything about this movie's all that bad. Even when the actors aren't able to make every joke work, the voice acting itself isn't half bad, and some of the animation isn't half bad either. Overall, this movie averages out to, well, average. Just like I knew it would. Even though I don't highly recommend this film, if you're one of those curious types, or are just looking for something to waste time, it's generally harmless. You just won't be able to gain much out of it. For that reason, I give this movie on a scale between 1 and 10, a 5. It's pretty much meh. Or should I say, meh? Okay, bad joke aside, this movie can kind of suck it, but not really. See you later!